This is Dan of Vagabond Awake. Today I'm interviewing two people who met overseas back in 2008 and have been together ever since. They each left the USA because they wanted to see the world. They have since transformed their lives into what I believe is the ultimate overseas retirement dream. It is not as important that you agree that they are living the ultimate retirement dream. Heck, yours is probably going to be different. But it would be useful for you to understand and consider their mindset that empowered them to create their dream life. You could use that to discover and create your own personal dream life. I will share their story backwards in time. If you know where their thinking landed them in life, it will help you focus as they explain how they thought their way through life to end up living in their dreams. Okay, here we go. So this is Dan of Vagabond Awake, and I feel lucky today to have Garrett and Alla on the interview today. They have an amazing life, and I'll let them tell you in their own words. Welcome to the channel, you two.
Thanks, Dan. It's nice to meet you. I've been a follower for a couple of years, and I appreciate all the videos you put out. It's been very informative.
Thanks for having us.
The world is your oyster, and you learn about places and decide where you're going to go, and you have this business now in Montana that you really love and that people can visit. And so it's pretty amazing life. What is it? Is it something about the way you think that makes this life possible to you? Why do you get this life and other people don't? Why do you think that is?
Well, we're not trust fund babies, so that's why we didn't get this life. No, it's funny that you mentioned that because when we bought the property, we bought it sight unseen. My parents said, "Hey, do you want in on this? We're buying this amount of land, and you can buy it at a bulk price. It's reasonable." So we bought this sight unseen. We showed up and we're like, "This is sick." And we had friends that came out and they were like, "You guys are Looney Tunes. This is out there." And it's only after that we've developed it that we get people like, "Are you guys inherently wealthy? Is it Bitcoin money?" We get the trust fund comments on the internet all the time. It's like, "Bro, you weren't here 14 years ago. Like we had an outhouse, and we didn't have electricity, and I was the light Nazi." Like we had fixtures of lights that had 4 or 6 bulbs, and there was a single bulb, low energy bulbs. So people are really quick to judge. So why us? Like anyone else that's 43 years old or around that time as a dude, like Fight Club, and just kind of like, what do I need? And just focusing on what I need and trying to eliminate the periphery, the noise. And turns out there's a lot of noise as far as the materialism.
Especially now, a lot of noise out there.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of it is delayed gratification, which is a big one. And we learned that from developing the property. Also kind of sports. I like weightlifting and that thing. And you don't see results immediately. It's months and years, not like days and weeks like the magazines would have you suggest. So just kind of enjoying the process and enjoying the grind and just grinding. When we went in with my parents, we thought it was going to be 10 or 15 years out before we'd move back. And it turned out it was 12 and a half. So right down the middle of the plate there. But we always had a plan and just kind of grinding and enjoying that. And I think we're just smart about it.
I think it's perspective. When the opportunity of teaching in Korea came up, I could have completely dismissed it. And they asked me for my photo. They asked me for unusual kind of pieces of information that American employers don't ask for. Every, ounce of my being was like, be careful, make sure you don't end up being sold into some kind of, sexual slavery thing. But I decided to go for it. And I decided that luckily, thankfully, it did not come out that way. And just going abroad and facing some challenges, but also having a very different perspective, hopefully an optimistic perspective.
People have this idea that traveling around the world like you guys are is super expensive. They've seen movies and people stay in penthouses and ride around in private jets and have chauffeur drivers and all this kind of thing. The kind of life I live and possibly the kind of life you live is not that kind of life. But what's an example of budget that you guys keep, let's say when you're in Mexico or Vietnam, or at least what are your goals?
First out of the gate, I can tell you we make less than the average U.S. household income. So you can't. People will be like, "Oh, well, I don't make that kind of money." It's like, you do, because we make less than it, first off. Second, in Mexico, because we're just getting the residency, we're doing Airbnbs, we weren't doing the long-term rentals, so you spend a little bit more there. we would typically stay in something in Mexico. It'd be about $30 a night. We would try to do like a search filter on a weekly discount because we were bouncing from week to week. So I would say Mexico was $1,500 to $1,800 a month. We weren't really pinching pennies. We would always make breakfast at home. I love eggs, so I make eggs for us. And for dinner, we'd always go somewhere. And that would be, $10 for dinner between the two of us, like an alambre. I love taco alambres. And coffee would be $3 each, maybe.
Dessert.
Just a little pick-me-up,
Yeah.
But that's factoring in bus tickets, and you're always buying bottled water in Mexico or using the bathroom. So it just is what it is. Obviously, you can cut that down much, much more if you get actual rentals and such. But we want to see a new place every week because we're trying to make that top 5 list for us. So we pay a little bit of a premium for it. And when the time comes, if we're going to stay in Puebla for 3 months, then we'll look at a rental there.
We also travel with a single backpack, so it makes it buying souvenirs basically impossible. And we have kind of trained ourselves that we don't need the little thingies. If we ever do end up with some kind of souvenir, maybe we'll send it home, but it's really, really rare. Basically just kind of, again, thinking back to possessions, I don't need these tiny little things taking up space in my home in the States and also while I'm traveling. So just feeling so much lighter and spending less and not even being, persuaded by all these beautiful markets that have gorgeous, multicolored things.
In Vietnam, we're paying $27 a night, and that includes breakfast and a pool. It's outside of Old Town, so we could overlook a nice rice paddy. And Vietnam is discernibly cheaper than Mexico as far as food and coffee goes. I mean, it might not sound like much to the North American viewer, the difference between a $1.50 meal and a $3 meal, but if you're eating out twice a day, I guess that does add up. Like Vietnam, Hoi An specifically, hasn't changed much pre-pandemic as far as prices or being built up in 4 years. And that's hard to say about a lot of places not being there for 4 years, that nothing has really changed. And Hoi An hasn't changed really one bit. It's gotten nicer. Like there's more, they put some more money into some of the buildings in Old Town, but the prices are, the hotel that we're staying in now, the little mom and pop resort, is the exact same price it was 4 years ago. Yeah, that's kind of shocking and rare. But for money wise, I would say I would take maybe probably $1,200 to $1,400 in Vietnam for 2 people. Currently, where we're at now, we're not doing bougie things, and we're not going to bougie Western restaurants or anything. But I love pho. I think it's one of the best meals ever made, and I'm happy to pay the person at the stall 30,000 to 40,000 dong for it, which is about $1.20 to $1.75.
And I'm such a girl, I am still love shopping, still love looking at clothing, and still love dressing up and all of that. But I'm also realizing I can't do those things because then I can't travel with a single backpack, and most importantly, I won't be able to travel for as long. And
that's the key.
I want to be able to continue to live this lifestyle. So my lifestyle versus a piece of clothing, and then you make a decision that you don't need it.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, one checked bag for 3.5 months for 2 people. And our hotel here, we think is quite big. I would say it's probably 200 to 250 square feet. And we lived in 450 square feet in Korea. So I was like, this is spacious. What do I need? If somebody is cooking me breakfast, somebody's doing my laundry.
And we have a pool.
Yeah.
But being here in Vietnam, for example, we got a massage the other day. And absolutely for free, the lady washed my hair and styled my hair because she wants me to come back. So just being in these places where money goes a lot further and you feel valued as a tourist, as a human. Also, Vietnam didn't have any tourists for 2 years, so they're happy to have us. They probably will, do things extra. I
love Asia. Asia's the creme de la creme for me, and watching, as we do now with YouTube, watching videos and doing research. And I watched a lot of your videos about Asia, and there's some YouTubers in their 20s in Mexico, and I love their videos and what they put together, but I couldn't take them seriously because they'd never been to Asia. You're like, this is great, but it's no Malacca. I was like, okay, I like this guy because he can ping off of Asia. Until you've been to Asia, you don't know. So Asia, it's going to take a lot to take down central Vietnam for us.
Your resort, how is glamping different from camping?
So camping is you're bringing your gear, your tent, and you're cooking things, and you're basically sleeping outdoors in a tent. But glamping can be as nice as a cabin. So our cabins are off the grid. So you're kind of like staying in a little building, but you're still very much surrounded by nature. You hear nature. Sometimes nature comes in and says hello, you know, in the form of a squirrel or a bug. So glamping is kind of, they call it glamorous camping.
Yeah.
And glamping can take on a lot of different looks. In South Korea, glamping had giant tents with air conditioning and swimming pools sometimes, and it was like very bougie and nice. But our resort is, you know, self-built, self-made, so it's a little bit more rustic, more simple, smaller, and we want people to kind of explore nature more than staying inside this beautiful bubble in nature.
If you take a Venn diagram and you've got like super hardcore campers on one side that will hike in for several hours and pitch a tent and throw a little the little air mattress, not even air mattress, what is it? Padding, yeah, on the ground. And then you got the people that want to stay in proper hotels. We're kind of in the center. We get some people that are like the hotel people that are super bougie and want to splash out. They'll use us and they'll try us as a little taste of nature.
Okay.
And then we get the people that are super hardcore people who are like, oh my God, it's so nice to have access to hard shell siding, not getting rained on. And that is their that's like their top notch, splashing out for all the amenities sort of thing. So we're nicely situated right in the center for a lot of people there. So.
And we are located in this kind of remote part of Montana in the city of Bonner, where there's not a lot of light pollution. So we are so lucky to be able to observe the stars in the Milky Way at night. So 2 of our cabins, and coming this summer, we will build another cabin, which will be able to observe the stars without having to lift your head. We have these translucent panels that we have incorporated into the buildings, and it's just a really fun way to feel like you're in nature and to look at the stars and just being, you know, like being inspired by the awe that's out there.
Very cool. And that's your residence May through October.
Yeah.
So if people want to follow your adventures or go glamping with you in Montana, how do they find you?
So our resort is called the Homestead. Garrett's last name is 𝐻Ohn, H-O-H-N, and we are kind of homesteaders. So our friend helped us with this name, the Homestead. So you can find us at thehomestead.com in Bonner, Montana.
Or of course on Instagram, the same handle, the Homestead.
Tell us, where are each of you from, and how did you meet?
So I was born in Odessa, Ukraine, and when I was 13, right about to enter high school, my family, my mom, my brother and I, we moved to Delaware, American state, and my mom got married. So then I went to high school there, university, and after university, I got a job teaching in South Korea, where I met this guy.
I'm from Michigan, and in high school we moved to Montana, and I student taught in Washington, and I moved to Hawaii and taught. So I just kind of kept going west and then east eventually. And so I met her in Masan, South Korea.
So you met in Korea. That's great. And so how did you end up in Korea? Why did you choose Korea back in 2008?
Someone told me that, hey, you can find a recruiter and maybe they can place you with a teaching job in South Korea. And I was thinking, well, I'm not really a teacher, but I do want to travel so much. They pay for your accommodation. In addition to like $2,000 income, I got a position and I never looked back.
For me, so I knew I wanted to go to Asia somewhere. Korea just came up on this website called 𝗙𝗪𝐶𝐶𝐿-Cafe.com. So I put my ad up there and somebody responded to me, but like a 9-day thing between when I kind of contacted somebody and when I was there with 2 suitcases. Crazy.
Most people that I meet talk about maybe doing a 2, 3, 4-year contract. You guys were in Korea for 14 years. How did that come about? You must have loved the place.
They were like, oh, actually, so would you like to come for a year? So I decided to go for a year. I don't know. I never really had, I guess this is like my life story. I never really had an idea I would get married or where I would live or what I really wanted from life. I was just kind of like happy with the things that were unrolling for me. And having an opportunity to move to America, you know, the land of opportunity when I was 13 was kind of like, this is pretty cool. So I was just happy to have a job. And I don't know, 14 years later, we were just kind of there.
My thinking is at the time was We were coming into a Montana winter, and all I wanted to do was avoid the 6 months of Montana winter. So I thought I would do the same thing, like 6 months worth. And like I tried to leave 2 or 3 different times, and some sort of hook just kept pulling me back. And the last hook was in 2010, and we'd sold everything. And we're like, okay, we're going to go home. We're going to do something else, or we're going to finally go to Japan, or we're going to go to the Middle East. 1 week left, and I'm playing ice hockey with like used gear because I'd sold my ice hockey gear. And my buddy says, "Hey, what's your plan after Korea?" And I said, "Well, my wife and I, or new wife, want to go to Japan." And he goes, "Oh, really? Because my university is hiring, and you should really think about applying." And his name's Paul, is a great guy, and that dude changed the trajectory of the next like 12, 13, 14 years of our life. A simple sentence at an ice rink. And that's the thing, of just being open and available and flexible. We're like, well, this is an opportunity. Let's try it for a year and see what happens. And, it turns out we liked working 2 to 3 days a week, 12 hours a week with 5 months vacation, paid vacation. So yeah, what was us, right?
Personally, I found a lot of benefits to having lived a large chunk of my life outside of my home country. When you look back at who you were and who you are now, what are your thoughts about that?
I think for me, because I'm realizing that traveling, it's kind of counterintuitive to have a bunch of things. I'm just loving the fact that my husband is very similar in that case. Like his family, a construction family and stay-at-home mom.
Humble, yeah.
Yeah, very humble family. And I just feel like possessions hold down so many people. We have had so many friends who are like, "Oh, I can't travel like you," or "I can't go teach abroad like you because I have this car and I have to put my stuff in storage and my furniture. I can't get rid of my furniture. I love it." And I'm thinking, well, you can always replace that stuff. And are you
have furniture where you're going, believe it or not.
I hope that they realize that this stuff is holding them down, because the world is so incredible. It's life-changing, character building.
And then as me, a changed person who's lived, again, most of my adult life outside of the country, it's funny to kind of revisit these expat forums on Facebook, newbies coming over, and they're worried about making sure they can find their exact flavor of Jolly Rancher. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, seriously, wherever you're going is going to have amazing food. You'll find something you like. So it makes you so much more flexible. Yogurt was a direct sour cream substitute for us for a long time. I kind of feel like a cockroach, like I can live anywhere, literally. And I think that's a good thing. So we're super flexible. You could try to explain it to somebody, but until you're there, like, as you say, boots on the ground, you don't know how you're going to react. And you'll find out things about yourself that you didn't know you had within you, because sink or swim, you kind of have to. I wouldn't take it back. I wouldn't take any of it back, honestly.
So after 14, 15 years in Korea, what did you do next? You guys are not in Korea right now, right?
No, we're in Hoi An, Vietnam right now.
Back in 2010, with mom and dad, Garrett's mom and dad, we bought property in Bonner, Montana. And coming back on our summer vacations, we slowly started to develop that property because it had no roads, no buildings, no septic, no electricity, nothing. And we just needed a place to stay for the summertime. So slowly but surely, Garrett built a tiny little shack, tiny little cabin we called the shanty. We lived out of it. And then every summer we would just come back and kind of build on and build this, build that, just whatever we needed at the time. And 7 years later, we decided to put up the shanty on Airbnb just to see if anybody would come in and want to stay in the forest in a rustic kind of situation, off grid. For shits and giggles, we put it up on Airbnb. I took some photos and we had some interesting guests. I remember our first guest, his name was Gert from Amsterdam. And he was so much fun. And we had so much fun just chatting and connecting and talking about travel that Garrett and I were like, this is a really fun kind of side gig. So after that, summer after summer, we would slowly kind of develop our resort and build up. And I was just kind of wanting to see, where else can we take it? Can we grow this business? And can we really leave our teaching jobs, leave our golden cage?
We had a lot of time to think during the pandemic, and we had this kind of plan B that we were building up, and our business was taking off. And, during the coronavirus, we had a lot of time to think, because like we did quarantine in 450 square foot apartment 2 different times for 2 weeks. Can't go nowhere. Start thinking like, hey man, if they can shut us down like this, we got a lot of acreage in Montana. It was a very different experience. So thankful for the experience. Like I tried to look at a silver lining, couldn't do nothing, had to think about like my life and being close to my parents, whom are getting older. And we have a nice place. People come and pay to vacation where we live. So it's like, if that isn't an eye opener, I don't know what is. We've been doing the same thing for 14 years. And while I love it, and you just heard me talk so highly about Korea, the take home point is I can always come back to vacation as a tourist. And our schedule is such that we work May to October.
May through October is when your glamping site is open for the public. Is that right? Okay.
That's correct. Yep. That's when we're working.
In the beginning, living in Montana in the summertime, I didn't feel exactly comfortable. But over the years, I kind of grew to appreciate the stoic nature of it all and realizing being in nature is really cool.
Much like Korea and Montana having parallels, like when we moved to Korea, there were so many things that we couldn't get. And as we got them, incrementally, you just appreciate them so much more. Same thing with our bare property. There was nothing there. There wasn't even a road. And every time we added something, it was like this big deal. Like having a cistern of 200 gallons was amazing. And then we upgraded to 500 gallons. And then, you know, we got a flushing toilet. We didn't have a flushing toilet for 7 years. And then we went from 2 megabit a second to Starlink. I mean, that's a big jump. Just appreciating these small things that most people, if they buy a turnkey house, they just instantly step into. And where's your struggle been, really? I'm a big proponent of just enjoying the process and the journey. Come out there feeling like a champion. And until you've been there in a foreign country, you won't understand that. And I don't know. It's really cool. I like it.
Or if you face challenges frequently enough, then you're like, another challenge, I'll just have plan B, plan C, go around it.
So you're there at your glamping site, the part of the year we talked May through October. Give people an example of how you wander, if you will, around. Like you have this free life. What are you doing the rest of the time? Give an example maybe over the last 12 months and the next 6.
For destination-specific places on our radar, I know it's kind of weird, but my 25th country, I just went to Mexico for the first time last year, which is kind of funny. We're doing the residency thing, and again, your videos have been very useful for that. So Mexico is definitely on our radar, going to and fro, a lot more approachable than those 18-hour, 24-hour door-to-door trans-Pacific flights. So that's been, an achievement unlocked for us, is just going to Mexico, Missoula to Mexico City, 7 hours door-to-door. Amazing.
Right now we are in Hoi An, Vietnam, and we haven't been here for the past four years. And coming back here, we feel kind of at home. We feel this like an incredible feeling of belonging because everything is so inexpensive. The place where we're staying, they're so kind. The family is just so incredible. They're always helping us, and breakfast is included. Bicycles to the beach are included. There's a pool. And I just feel like I have this amazing standard of living here that I don't get anywhere else. And we can definitely see ourselves coming back here maybe every other year.
Sure. Yeah, we're always kind of looking for not that place. I know you mentioned that some of your audience is like super fixated on I'm finding my place, but we're very young. She's 38, I'm 43. So we're not thinking about that place because the world is massive. I'm thinking about like, how can I get a list of top 5? So that way nothing is stale. We're going to do the same thing if we go back to Puebla. I love Puebla, but I also want to see other places too. And the same way that when we get to travel to a Mexico or Vietnam, by the time we're done with those several months, same thing when we're in Korea, like we are ready. We are so ready for Montana. And for people that haven't traveled, and as you get older, like your mood just comes kind of like stable. And I feel bad for somebody. Remember when you were 10 years old or 8 years old, waking up for Christmas morning? Like, how often do you get that sensation anymore? And for me, coming back to Montana at like 38, 39, after 10 months in Asia, I felt Christmas morning every time we came back. And like, I just think that's a cool sensation that's hard to replicate in adult life. So
you get to appreciate where you come from.
Yeah. So nothing is ever stale in that respect. But on our radar would be definitely Mexico. We did some extensive traveling over the last couple of years there, and we really enjoyed the mountains. We actually really disliked the beach. It was really hot. I know that kind of goes without saying, but Jesus, soul-crushingly hot. So we love Puebla. We love Guadalajara. 𝗓𝗏. We weren't sold on 𝗓𝗏 at first, but then we went back a second time. I was like, damn, I like 𝗓𝗏 a lot. I know you like Guanajuato. I've seen your videos about Guanajuato. It was a little dense and condensed for me.
I love Guanajuato.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing.
And,
I love the energy.
But that's it, man. Different strokes for different folks, and you don't know until you're there. And even yourself as a person can kind of change and be like, you know what? Before I was all about Thailand, but it's pretty hot. So now I found Hoi An, and tomorrow is supposed to be like 75F, like 25C, very approachable. So yeah, it's just fun to explore and kind of unwrap these Christmas presents anywhere you go. Some are kind of duds, you know, you got a sweater from the aunt, but some are just absolute bangers.
Thank you too so much for coming on the channel and telling your amazing story. I really very grateful.
Thank you. I mean, who knows? I just commented on one of your videos and you hit me up, so I feel like it was meant to be.
It's been a privilege. Thank you, Dan.